Part of the city's 60-day shelter limit, but the city insists parents and children won't be left out on the street.
That kind of speaks to the complexity of this issue, right? We have seen the city grapple with this for quite some time now. The city is once again reassuring these families that they are not just kicking them out and saying, hey, get out of here. So migrant families now mostly live in about 150 or so shelters that are.
It's not financially sustainable, and it's just not the right things to do to human beings. If we build this system, if we've had 212,000 people still in our care, preventive steps were taken. People should not be in shelters their entire lives.
The New York exodus. New York City is really feeling the heat lately, grappling with a mix of tough issues that have everyone talking about what the future holds for this iconic metropolis. From nonstop protests to rising crime and a chaotic housing market, NYC's problems are piling up and making it a hot topic of debate. Take this Monday morning, for example. Some hopeful Columbia University students and local residents got a rude awakening when they were turned away from the Morningside Heights campus. New restrictions are now in place. Visitors need to pre-register, and access is limited to just 5 entry points. This change comes after a wave of protests that started late last year over a humanitarian crisis in Palestine. These demonstrations have not only persisted, but have often turned violent, spilling into the streets and parks, causing quite a bit of damage. Protests aren't exactly new to New York. The city has seen its fair share of political and social unrest over the years. While the sight of large-scale riots and property damage might seem like an unfortunate norm, the potential for more unrest as schools reopen could add even more strain to a city already struggling with its resources. The former governor has pointed out that ongoing unrest could discourage people from sticking around, adding to the city's growing list of problems. On top of that, public safety in NYC is a growing concern. The city boasts a hefty police presence, but maintaining order isn't as straightforward as it sounds. While the NYPD can tackle crime waves and respond to protests, their resources often run thin. This reactionary approach means crime might be temporarily subdued, but it can easily flare up again once the police leave. Take street vendors, for example. Crackdowns are frequent, but vendors often return as soon as enforcement eases, showing how these temporary measures don't address the root causes of the issue. And then there's the situation with the city's shelters. Places like the Row Hotel, now housing asylum seekers, are reportedly becoming hotspots for crime. The NYPD has been dealing with incidents involving weapons and other dangerous items being smuggled into these facilities. The presence of gangs, like the Venezuelan gang Tren Aragua, which is expanding its operations in the city, only makes things worse. These gangs are reportedly using the shelters to recruit new members, adding another layer of tension to an already volatile environment. Housing is another major headache. Despite a shrinking population, NYC's census data shows a loss of around 80,000 residents over the past year. The apartment vacancy rate has plummeted to a mere 1.4%. This means there's a severe housing crunch, where the demand far outstrips the supply. With living costs and home prices skyrocketing, many people find it increasingly tough to move, even if they're unhappy with their current situation. A lot of residents feel stuck in the city, partly due to the high cost of moving and the economic challenges they face. With the cost of living and grocery prices climbing, saving up for a significant move becomes a real struggle. This economic squeeze might be why some folks choose to stay in the city despite their frustrations. The former governor's concerns about NYC's future hinge on these intertwined issues. The city could face even more problems if public safety continues to decline and economic difficulties worsen. Whether these issues will lead to a mass exodus or if the city can adapt and overcome remains to be seen. NYC's resilience is about to be put to the test as it tries to navigate these complex challenges and figure out how to maintain its status as a livable city.
It's not financially sustainable, and it's just not the right things to do to human beings. If we build this system, if we've had 212,000 people still in our care, preventive steps were taken. People should not be in shelters their entire lives.
Cycle of crime. New York City is in the midst of a tough situation. The ongoing drama with street vendors is a prime example of this struggle. Here's the deal. Law enforcement swoops in for a crackdown. vendors pack up and move on, but as soon as the cops head out, the vendors are back in action. This back and forth doesn't tackle the root issue. There's a lack of permanent oversight in areas plagued by crime. It's a frustrating cycle for residents who just want to enjoy a little peace and quiet. But that's just one piece of the puzzle. NYC is also facing a shrinking population, with nearly 80,000 people having left recently. So you'd think this drop in residents might ease the housing crunch, right? Wrong. The city is experiencing the tightest housing market in 50 years, with a vacancy rate that's plunging to a mere 1.4%. It's a classic case of a dwindling population not matching up with the severe shortage of available apartments. High living costs and skyrocketing grocery prices are driving people away, even as the city's problems pile up. Shelters are also becoming hotspots for new issues. Many folks in these shelters, dealing with joblessness and disillusionment, are falling prey to these gangs, which only fuels the city's crime problem. On top of that, gun violence is making things worse. Gangs are increasingly using shelters as their base of operations and recruitment centers, leading to a rise in violence. NYC's sanctuary status, which protects the immigration status of individuals, might be unintentionally drawing in people involved in criminal activities, making the city seem like a safe haven from legal trouble. With crime rates climbing and safety concerns mounting, New Yorkers are feeling increasingly uneasy. The combination of gang violence, illegal weapons, and the challenges in managing shelters is putting more strain on a city that's already stretched thin. This situation needs a multifaceted approach to address both the immediate safety issues and the deeper, long-term problems affecting the city's stability and quality of life. So as NYC navigates these complex challenges, it's clear that finding effective solutions will be crucial. The city's resilience is on the line as it works to balance safety, housing, and crime prevention, all while trying to maintain its reputation as one of the most vibrant and livable places in the world.
The city awarding up to $4,000 grants to migrant families who exit the shelter system and find their own housing.
Shelter is an emergency solution that is intended for the short term. We've done 150 families starting about 7 months ago. It is important that that short-term solution is safe and healthy and that we are providing. I think we have had one person from a family, not even the whole family, come back. So that is, in my mind, a very strong success rate. Really is for documented expenses related to permanent housing. So that could be first and last month's rent. It could be moving expenses. The shelter providers are really looking at documents that makes financial sense because shelter is very expensive and this is a targeted one-time payment.
New shelter controversy. New York City is ramping up its efforts to deal with the rising number of asylum seekers by opening new shelters, including one in Riverdale. This move is stirring up a lot of buzz and debate among locals and city officials, with many questioning how these changes will affect their neighborhoods, crime rates, and overall safety. City officials argue that turning vacant buildings into shelters is a practical solution to accommodate the thousands of asylum seekers pouring into the city amid a humanitarian crisis. Critics, including former Governor Andrew Cuomo, worry that this surge could worsen existing problems and push even more residents to leave the city. Residents are particularly concerned about the potential spike in crime linked to these new shelters. Venezuelan gangs are reportedly exploiting the situation to gain a foothold in NYC. The NYPD is on the case, but these actions often only provide short-term fixes, with crime and vendors popping up again soon after. This ongoing cycle underscores the bigger issue of public safety in a city struggling with a rising population. Adding to the city's woes is its shrinking resident base. NYC has lost tens of thousands of residents in recent years, largely due to high living costs and rising crime rates. Despite this, the apartment vacancy rate is at a historic low, pointing to a severe housing shortage. This contradiction highlights the complexities of NYC's housing market and the economic strain on its residents. The city's troubles are further complicated by political and social unrest. Protests, including those supporting Palestine, have sometimes turned violent, leading to vandalism and attacks on officials. This unrest contributes to the image of a city in chaos, potentially discouraging both businesses and residents from staying. Crime in shelters is another big concern. Reports indicate that weapons are finding their way into these facilities, turning safe havens into dangerous places. This raises questions about the city's ability to manage these shelters effectively. Critics argue that crime in NYC isn't just a result of the migrant crisis, but also stems from broader systemic issues. The city has been criticized for its lenient approach to certain crimes, like shoplifting and street vending, which often go unpunished. This tolerance creates an environment where crime can thrive, regardless of demographic shifts. Former Governor Cuomo's concerns spotlight the need for a more comprehensive approach to these systemic issues. He suggests that the city's tolerance for certain levels of crime is driving residents away and lowering the quality of life. Balancing humanitarian efforts with effective crime management will be key to NYC's future stability.
Are overwhelmed at the southern border. Thousands of people are waiting to get in each day.
With new razor wire, illegal crossings are shifting to neighboring New Mexico.
This is a group of about 100 illegal aliens that were waiting at the infamous Gate 36.
And one response to the influx is drawing heavy criticism from some who say it threatens the economy.
They are out doing whatever regular business they do. The administration for not doing their job, and they said Texas is going to do the job that it has. We're going to have to see what happens. I mean, a lot of people are expecting this case to make it all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Open borders, no testing for COVID.
President Biden inherited situation, the infrastructure for processing asylum seekers and settling asylum seekers in the United States.
In short, while New York's new shelters aim to provide immediate relief for asylum seekers, they also spotlight larger issues with crime, housing, and safety. Whether NYC can effectively juggle these concerns without compromising its core values and livability remains to be seen. What's your take? Can NYC manage these challenges and still thrive? That's all for this video, folks. We'll see you next time.